Today on Passion for Food, we're making beef barbacoa, a word that originated from the Arawak people in the Caribbean that's actually the basis for our modern word barbecue. Now, traditionally we would want to dig a big hole and roast these covered in agave leaves, but I really feel like that method is the pits, so we're going to be doing a more modern version today. And a special thanks to my friend James in Texas for the suggestion. If I speak a little slower than normal, it's just because I want to be sure he can follow along. Anyway, now that our preliminary roastings are out of the way, let's prepare our adobo sauce. Now, most of the barbacoa recipes I saw involved starting with a can of these chilies in adobo sauce, but I kind of felt like that's cheating, so I'm going to start with dried chilies. If you want to use the canned stuff, that's fine. Just skip ahead to where we're blending everything together. So to get us started here, we're going to be using two different kinds of dried peppers, starting with these guajillo peppers. These have a great mild flavor, but they're really not very spicy at all. So we're just going to cut those up into our pot, and then in addition to those, I'm going to be using 5 or 6 of these smaller ancho chilies. Now, these are in here to really spice things up. These are the hotter chilies, so, depending on how spicy you want things, use more or less of those. And we simply want to cover those with hot water and bring it up to a simmer. At which point we can turn off the heat and simply cover this and let it sit for about 30 minutes. All we're really doing here is rehydrating these peppers. I suppose you could probably grind them into powder and use it that way, but that's not as fun. Our now rehydrated peppers are going to form the base of our adobo sauce. I'm going to just dump these peppers into my food processor, and we want to use about half of this liquid, about half a cup in total. I'm just going to kind of eyeball that. It doesn't have to be exact. Just a little more. There we go. To that, we're going to add 1 full tablespoon of oregano, along with 1 full tablespoon of cumin. Along with our secret ingredient, 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves. Shh, don't tell anyone. Oops, I forgot my blade there. Don't do that. And now we're just going to salt and pepper. This is going to look like a lot of salt, but keep in mind this is for an entire 3-pound chuck roast. Now, here at Passion for Food, we really believe in getting ahead with our garlic, so I'm going to use an entire head of garlic for this one. And into the food processor we go. A blender would also work great for this, by the way. Next, we want about 1/4 cup of lime. I like to hand squeeze my limes. And into the bowl we go. In addition to our 1/4 cup of lime juice, we also want 1/4 cup of vinegar. I'm going to use apple cider vinegar today. And once we put our lid on the food processor, it's going to automatically start, because apparently I forgot I left it switched on last time. Whoops, don't do that. And we just want to continue this process until our homemade adobo sauce is pretty completely smooth. I mean, it doesn't have to be completely smooth, but I do like being a smooth operator from time to time. Anyway, once our homemade adobo sauce is a good consistency, we can go ahead and just set that aside for now, while we get our meat ready. And we're going to be using a 3-pound beef chuck roast today. And we do want to season this on both sides with salt and pepper, which actually reminds me of a joke. Hey, why did the skeptic have such high blood pressure? Well, because he was taking everything with a grain of salt. Alright, now that we've been assaulted with that joke, it's time to sear our beef. And to get that optimal flavor, we want to do this over high heat. The idea here is to get that Maillard reaction going, which is going to enhance our flavors later on. Interestingly, most of the recipes I saw actually suggested cutting the meat into chunks first and then searing it, except in my humble opinion, it is far easier to sear the entire chunk of meat first like this, and now we're going to cut it up into pieces. It just makes it quicker and easier. I mean, think about it. If you cut up your meat first and then sear it, you have all these individual pieces you have to worry about getting flipped over. But this way, we're only flipping over the one big piece. So we just want to go ahead and get this cut up into approximately 2-inch cubes. As usual, it doesn't really have to be perfect, but try and get them all roughly the same size if you can. Now, I've actually seen a bunch of recipes that oddly suggest trimming off the fat at this point. But good barbacoa, just like good barbecue, really needs that fat in there as it cooks to help keep things moist and delicious. So don't do that. That's just stupid. Any fat or gristle that doesn't cook down sufficiently can just be removed later on when we're shredding this. So we're just going to hop back into the pot with these and get them covered in that beautiful homemade adobo sauce. And I was trying to think of a spicy sauce joke for this part, but I was concerned about getting burned, so I guess we'll just cover it up. Anyway, we just want to get this mixed around and make sure our adobo sauce is coming into contact with all sides of our beef. Trust me, you'll really have a cow when you see how much that can beef up the flavor. Alright, I know I'm really punishing you guys today, so all we want to do is cover that and stash it in a 250-degree oven for about 3 hours. You could also easily do this in a slow cooker on low for around 6 hours or so. And trust me, if you've never made this before, your whole house is just going to smell amazing. And here's the big moment. After 3 hours, you can see this beef is just beautifully tender. You should be able to easily pull it apart with a fork, and it's still nice and juicy, not all dried out. And we just want to get this shredded up. I like the 2-fork method, but if you have those weird like Wolverine claw barbecue puller things, go ahead and bust those out. That'll be the one time this year you use those things. And as I mentioned earlier, if you run across any big pieces of fat that didn't cook down, you can go ahead and remove those. I fed a couple to my dogs here. They're a big fan of that. After we've channeled our inner shredder, it's a good idea to let this sit in the sauce for another 5 to 10 minutes just to let that really penetrate, and it's going to thicken up just a tiny bit. But that's it. Our beef barbacoa is ready to serve, and I know you saw the loaded nachos in the intro, so I'm going to give you a couple other ideas here of what we can do with it. How about a grilled black bean barbacoa burrito? Yikes, say that 5 times fast. In here, of course, we have our barbacoa along with some avocado, seasoned rice, black beans, and mozzarella cheese. These are especially good with a little sour cream on the side. But if you're not completely interested in a burrito, another great idea would be doing a loaded barbacoa burrito bowl. I like mine with seasoned rice, jalapenos, cheese, avocado, and sour cream, but you can load these up just however you would like. So I hope I've given you a couple of ideas of what you can do with this awesome beef barbacoa. I really hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Passion for Food. If you have, give me a thumbs up below and consider subscribing and hitting that little bell so you don't miss our future recipes. Let me know in the comments below what foods you're passionate about. And check out one of our other great recipes playing on the screen now. This has been Graham with Passion for Food.